Social media. All of us use it. Some of us love it. Others, not so much. Because let's be honest, it can connect and inspire us, or it can completely suck us into a scroll that lands us right in the funk. Every once in a while, though, something in that scroll ignites a spark. Welcome to the WTO podcast, friends. My name is Molly Smith, and I'm on a mission to equip a million people with the tools to recognize when they're in the funk, but more importantly, how to pivot out of it. By tuning in today, you have joined me on this mission, and I am so glad you are here. So, one night in the middle of the pandemic, my guest today was scrolling TikTok to try to check out from a hectic day and landed on a video of somebody making epoxy tumblers. Pretty innocuous, right? Not for her. Mary Ziegler was working in patient safety for a healthcare system, balancing a master's program, and completely burned out. That one TikTok, it sparked a curiosity that would eventually lead her to launch Aunt Myrtle's Designs, creating intentional, high quality branded products that build trust, spark conversation, and keep a brand top of mind long after the first interaction. What I love about this story is that it shows that social media isn't just a place where we can go to check out. Sometimes it's where the inspiration finds you. Please join me in welcoming my friend, Mary Ziegler, to the WTF podcast. Hi, my friend.
Hi, Molly.
I'm so glad we get to tell your story because I think it's so relatable being able to just sitting down at the end of a long day, scrolling social media to check out from the hecticness of life and all the things, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that has that positive and negative vibe with it,
It
for sure.
does. It does. Okay, so take us back to the pandemic, working in healthcare. What did your first and she, guys, she works at patient safety during a pandemic. Can you just imagine how hectic that is? But take us back to that time and tell us kind of what life was like during that season for you.
Yeah. So COVID hit. I had signed up for a master's program, and that was, of course, before COVID happened, right? And COVID hit. I was told, hey, you're working from home now. So home 24/7, no office, no driving to hospitals like I was used to doing all the time. And so, trying to figure out how to work from home full time and making sure that, my team was as up in spirits as they possibly could. New things happening every single day. Of course, I have very good friends and best friends that work in healthcare that are RNs, so they're on the front lines. So I'm worried about their safety. Healthcare in general was really scary that time, kind of no matter where you were.
Yeah.
And so as COVID kept going, things never got easier, especially in the first couple of months. And so my boss needed to take a different position to help out with something. And so I was kind of left to juggle her job, my job, of course, keeping the team in sync and everything. And I really, really was facing burnout. I mean, normally I would pretty much cry myself to sleep at night. I wasn't sleeping much. I was working like 16-hour days. It was just you never knew what was coming around the corner. You didn't feel like your feet were under you at all. And so my master's program started in August. As you know, COVID started in March.
Mhm.
And so I'm trying to juggle work plus figuring out how to go back to school because I hadn't been back in school in a really long time. And so it was a lot. And so one of my nieces at the time, that's when TikTok kind of became famous and kind of like launched.
Sure.
She was doing all these TikTok videos as, teens do. And so she's like, Aunt Mary, you have to watch my TikTok videos. And for a long time, I was like, yeah, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that.
Sure.
And one night I was like, you know what? Let me see if I can get a little bit of joy. And I started scrolling.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We're going to get to the TikTok here in a minute. I want to, if you looking back today, what do you think you needed in that season that you weren't getting?
I think I needed security and
Mhm.
just peace and just that everything was gonna be okay, that I could handle it all. I suffer from really bad anxiety.
Mhm.
So if there's stuff that I don't have control over or I'm unsure of how things are going to go, my anxiety goes through the roof. And so I was just looking for anything. Plus, I was tired. I
Yeah,
wasn't sleeping. I was working really long hours and it just was not, I was just looking for anything that felt safe.
safe. Okay. Okay, so that night that you were scrolling and you landed on that particular video of somebody making epoxy tumblers, what made you stop on that video?
I had always kind of liked art. I am not an artist when it comes to drawing, that kind of stuff. I can't
Okay.
draw to save my life. I can't cut a straight line to save my life. And so, it's just essentially doom scrolling like we all do on TikTok. And I don't know, something like I just came across it and she was turning a cup and I was like, what is that? And the
Is that
really
what it's called? Turning a cup?
Yeah, so
Okay.
essentially with epoxy tumblers, you use a cup turner. And so you have your cup on a chuck and the chuck attaches to the turner. And so you put epoxy on first and then you drop alcohol inks on it. And
Okay.
so then you kind of put like a drizzle on it of whatever color and then you heat it with a heat gun. And so the heat makes the alcohol inks disperse and everything. So the awesome thing about epoxy tumblers is that no one tumbler ever looks the same
Oh, interesting.
because of just how the alcohol ink disperses and everything. So I just was like, "Oh my god." And
Okay.
there was glitter, which as you can see behind me,
All the
glitter
glitter.
like so I was just
Okay.
like, "God, that's
O
amazing."
okay, so you saw this, you just captivated by it. This wasn't a one-time thing, like, you kept coming back to it. So what is it that kept pulling you in?
I think it was just something. I think it was something that could take my mind off of my day, my
Ah,
life. I like I said, was doing my master's degree. I remember saying to my one professor, like, "I'm quitting. I'm done. Like, I can't do this. I can't do it." Because I was questioning, do I want to be in healthcare? Do I want to be in patient safety? And patient safety was my absolute passion.
yeah.
And so, he's like, "Stop. You are finishing, you're getting through this, stop." And so, I think it was just that kind of escape. I didn't have to think about what was going on in the world. I could just watch. And so watching her name is Jen from Four Daughters Designs is who inspired me. And that's where I decided I wanted to start. I just watch it all night for 3 hours. And
Oh, good gosh.
she's in South Dakota. So there's
Okay.
a time difference, right? So
Sure.
I'd start watching at 10, I'd stop watching at like midnight or 1 a.m. Like I just was like, oh my God. And then I'd start watching other creators and stuff. And so it just became this total escape. I didn't have to think about what was
Okay. Well, when did you make the leap between, "Okay, this is a great way for me to unwind and be entertained," to, "This might be something that I wanna do?"
so anybody that knows me that's listening to this, when I say these words, I'll be like, "Mm, yeah, that's Mary." I don't do anything little. When I jump in, I jump in. And so I think again that escape, right? Like I was questioning if I wanted to be in healthcare. I was questioning everything, right? And this was something that I could do and it wasn't related to any of that stuff. So I
Okay.
decided that once I finished my master's degree, so I graduated in December of 2022 with my master's, I decided that this was probably like September of 2022, I was like, "I'm gonna start a business. I'm gonna make epoxy tumblers." Let's be very clear, I did not need to start a business, like, did not need that in my life,
Sure.
but I was like, "I'm gonna do this," and my friends and family were like,
Okay.
"Never," and so I literally got my bonus that year in, like, October and started buying, like, all the things, and, like, literally my living room, when I tell you it was packed full of stuff. Not joking. I mean, heat presses, epoxy tumblers, because I was like, I'm also doing sublimation too, like, because that's easy. And I self-taught myself everything.
Wow. Okay.
So I decided in September of 2022, and then Aunt Myrtle's Designs actually launched in March of 2023.
Oh my goodness. And so when you started out, you were doing sublimation and epoxy tumblers just
Yep.
like you saw on TikTok.
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
How has your business evolved? Because you're not doing some of that stuff today. So,
Yeah.
how has it evolved? Because now we're in the first half of 2026 and your business has shifted. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we just celebrated 4 years in March 20th, which is really hard to believe. So as you said, I started off just doing epoxy and sublimation, and that was fine. I did focus mainly on custom gifts. I did vendor shows a lot, and that was fine. But then in December of 2024, I had a double spine fusion. And so I had decided, like, I don't really love doing shows every weekend. It's a lot
Oh,
to
yeah.
get around and it's a lot of
Yeah.
product to keep inventory and all that kind of stuff. And I just wasn't digging it anymore. And I had switched jobs. I was no longer in patient safety, but I was still in healthcare. And so, faced with this double spinal fusion, I was like, I feel like I need to pivot. Like, I don't want to stop doing what I'm doing, but I just need something different. And so I said to one of my best friends who's a marketing consultant, "Hey, I'm thinking about working with businesses to make their branded merch. And what do you think about that?" And she's like, "Yes." And so in February of 2025, I pivoted to not doing as many shows. I really just do shows now in the fall, like that holiday season, a
Sure.
couple here and there that I like, and started working with businesses to make their branded merchandise. And so that was awesome. I love doing that. But then in January of 2026, I pivoted again a little bit, as you know,
I
and
do.
we're there in November of 2025 when I had this kind of epiphany of like, "Hey, you need to become a brand strategy consultant." And so in January of 2026, I launched my brand strategy side of my business. And so I now consult with businesses to help them understand what their brand strategy is and how to bring that into the 3D. Because we talk about marketing so much, but we don't talk about how important brand strategy is and how having your brand in the physical is so important.
Yeah. That's so amazing because when you think about it, there's so many things that are online, but like I have my What the Funk little water cup here that I take with me everywhere I go. This is an Aunt Meryl's design here that we did when I released my book. I take it everywhere I go because it's a walking brand
Mhm. Awesome.
representation of my brand, and I get questions on it all the time.
Yeah.
But it's as a business owner myself, like to think about how to bring something that represents my brand into the 3D that people can identify with. Like, it's not even on my radar, quite
Yeah.
honestly, right?
Yeah.
But it's clearly on yours, which is really
Absolutely.
cool. What has starting this business given you that you were missing before you saw that first video?
That's a really hard question. And it's kind of a hard place for me to sometimes say out loud. So, healthcare was my passion. It was my journey. It was where I saw myself forever. And since starting Aunt Myrtle's Designs and really, starting to work with businesses and stuff on brands in 2025 and this year, my passion has changed. And I love working with business owners, and when they have that aha moment and or they see their brand on something in the physical for the first time, like, I remember when you got your first shipment of items, we're like,
So exciting.
like,
So exciting.
it's so exciting, and it's like,
It is.
"Holy shit," I'm, like, literally for real, right? Like, I mean, when you see your company name on something that you can hand somebody, it's like,
Yep.
wow, right? That literally brings me all the feels, and I love it so much. I had to get through, like, imposter syndrome and, sitting in a room with other business owners when I'm like, "I don't belong here," right? Like, speaking about brand strategy. I've spoken on healthcare topics forever.
Yeah.
National conferences, international conferences, like, that's was my thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
being a business owner talking about brand strategy, I have had to overcome those things, and it has
Yeah.
really given me, I think, my true purpose. And it's hard sometimes to say that out loud and to understand that your journey can change, and that's
Yes.
okay. I have some
Yes.
colleagues that are like, I don't understand why you're not going for this certain credential or whatever. And it's because I don't want to anymore. I still love healthcare. Don't get me wrong. I still work in healthcare.
Yeah.
But it's just it's not my passion. And it's not what brings me the joy anymore.
So, and I think it's so important, especially if you're listening and you have been in a career or you set your sights maybe a decade ago or years ago on being in a certain field and you are feeling maybe not the discontent, but maybe it's just not lighting you up the way that you thought that it would for years. It's okay to pivot. It's okay to change your mind. I know that's part of my story as well. In the thought of stepping away from what I thought I was going to do for my life into something else is very scary. It's a very vulnerable place to be. But if there is that spark like you had with that one TikTok, which it's crazy that this entire thing
Yeah.
started with a TikTok. That's crazy to me. But if you find something that fills your cup, that brings you joy, it's okay to pivot and move forward towards that. So I absolutely love that. I think it's so relatable. So many people I think are probably in that space where they are like, I said I was going to do XYZ for the next 20 or 30 years, and now it's lost its luster. It's okay to pivot, right?
Absolutely. And I think that we don't allow ourselves, especially as women, to think that and to
Yeah.
be okay with that internally until you give yourself that permission.
Yes.
I think you like keep struggling, right? Like you don't have that peace, you don't have that joy. And, starting a business is not an easy thing. You know that.
Yeah.
I miss soccer games and baseball games for my nieces and nephews because I just have a ton of orders due because I still have a corporate job that I work,
Yeah.
during the day. So
Yeah.
weekends and evenings are, when I work on orders or meet with clients. And so, there's still those sacrifices and everything, but until you give yourself that permission to try something, you never know how it's going to change your life for the better.
Yeah. That's right. Okay, now when you think back to that first TikTok, sitting in the middle of that season of burnout, how do you see that moment, that video different now, knowing what it's turned into?
Oh, wow. That is interesting. I think that if I could go back to that time now and kind of like say to myself, like, hey, it's going to be okay. You're going to completely change the trajectory that you thought you were going to go in. You're going to get through this thing called COVID. It's going to take a while, but it's going to be okay. You're going to get through your master's. You're gonna start a business and you're gonna literally teach yourself everything. Because while I watched the videos and I saw her do it, like that's not like having somebody here in the physical saying, okay, this is what you do, blah, 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 right? So literally everything in my business, I have self-taught. And I think that if I could go back to that time, I could never picture where I am today,
Yeah.
ever. Working with amazing business owners that would have never come into my path, finding two of my best friends who are now like my sisters that I can't imagine life without, friends like you that have come into my life. And I could have never, ever pictured any of that 4 or 5 years ago when I was deep in it. And this all has come from that one TikTok. And it's really funny because I actually met Jen 2 years ago now
Oh my
at
gosh, that's so
a
cool.
at a Tumblr convention, and it was really cool because I'm like, "You literally inspired me to start my business," and she's done that for a lot of Tumblr makers and stuff, and to be able to say to her, like, "Thank you." Now, today, I don't make epoxy tumblers anymore, and, that part of my business is closed. I don't do epoxy anymore, and yeah, that's how I got started, but it doesn't bring me joy anymore, and that's
Yeah.
okay. It's allowed me to expand more into other products and that kind of stuff. So, I don't think that I could have seen where I am today
Yeah.
all then.
Yeah. So cool. So cool. All right, guys, here's the headline. All right. Don't underestimate the spark that comes from the scroll. You never know how it might turn into the very thing that helps you pivot out of the funk. If this episode resonated with you, please consider sharing it. And also, please rate, review, and subscribe to the show wherever you get it. It helps me continue this mission of reaching a million people and helping them pivot out of the funk. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you next time.